Tip of the cap to you, and thank you for joining us on the Pilot Money Guys. I'm your host, wealth manager Robert Eklund, call sign Rubber Mallet, and I am joined once again, thank goodness, by the Godfather, certified financial planner, Charlie Mattingly, who does indeed have his bells and whistles on, figuratively speaking, if you heard the last special edition one. Welcome, Godfather. I missed you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Captain Rubber Mallet, man. It's good to have you back. Real time, not just, after the fact recording and all that fancy stuff. So it's good to be back.
Not in proxy, if you will.
That's right. There you go. Proxy. Pun intended.
Pun intended. You bet. Yeah. On this episode of Flight, as we say, we're going to hit some quick aviation news and then jump right into questions from the flight deck, which are going to include some proxy voting, some CDs, some I-bonds, some gold even. But before that, Charlie, what's been happening in your world? I saw last I talked to you, you were at a Tennessee practice game.
Yes.
It was sold out.
Yes. We took the kiddos to the orange and white. And let me just clarify, I took the kiddos as an important part of this because I have a 7-year-old daughter, 22-year-old, 17-year-old. We didn't take the older girls. We took our 7-year-old.
Okay, yeah.
And we have 2 foster kiddos, ages 8 and 6. So nice. 3 kiddos. That's important because we go to this place and I thought it'd be bouncy castles, some ice cream here and there, a band here and there. Yeah. My 17-year-old was actually playing in the band in the stadium. So she was already there on her own.
Yeah.
And so, but we got in the stadium. It was absolute chaos. 60,000 people there.
Oh my!
And
at a practice game.
It was a practice game.
I sent you some
video.
Game.
Yeah, I sent you some video of the fireworks and this and that, and it was absolutely crazy. The crowds were very difficult. I've been there with 110,000, 107,000 officially people before. That's how much that stadium holds. And this was worse. I think they had half the stadium exits closed off or something. I mean, everybody was on. It was not fun. And plus, the moment we arrived, the kiddos were all begging to go home. so
sounds like a lot of fun, Charlie.
I couldn't quite enjoy the experience, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Anyway,
for practice.
I know.
Practice.
Expectations are high.
Not a game. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump in. Aviation news.
Yes.
We got age 67 retirement.
Man, this is back on the docket, Rob. Did you know that?
It's been on, off. Last I heard it was killed, but apparently it's back. Huh?
So March 22nd or 3rd, a bipartisan group of senators, I think Lindsey Graham is one of the guys, the guy from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, I think is how you pronounce his last name, and several others, bipartisan. They reintroduced the bill, Let Experienced Pilots Fly Act. And so it's really interesting because as I read the reasons they're reintroducing it, it's like, some of these towns, my small town airport's not getting service and flights are getting canceled. And I'm thinking, well, that's not really why they're getting canceled, and your city is not profitable. That's why they're not going there. So it's interesting to me. It's like, are these guys in touch with reality? What the heck is going on here? So I don't know.
Yeah, this is a touchy one. In theory, who's against older people doing whatever? I think most people are for it, especially when you get to that age, right? But in my opinion, humble opinion, not leading edge, not any airlines, but I think it's one of those things where the airlines got themselves in trouble with not acquiring or attracting the right people in a soon enough fashion, and now they're trying to pass legislation to just cut them some slack, just like they did from 60 to 65. And it's like, well, how many times are we gonna do this? Which leads us, I don't know. You got anything else on that? Which leads right to our next.
Well, the only thing I would ask you, I think the airlines that I remember reading, I could be wrong, but I thought Southwest in particular was against it. Maybe that's just, you never know what goes on. Here's my theory, Rob. Yeah. The airlines come out and say they're against it because it kind of makes sense. Pilots are less efficient. They've got more disabilities. They get more paid vacation. So it's not the most efficient work group, right?
Right.
So here's my theory. The airlines say, hey, let's all come out against this, line up with our pilots, because the pilots voted it down. I think most unions are against this.
That's what I've heard.
And then they go to the senators and say, hey, oh, hey, can you go ahead and pass this legislation?
Hey,
that's my theory. That's my theory. Because
it wouldn't be the strangest thing that happened.
I know, because the senator is talking about it. I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense, because there's a delay. You think a change in the pilot age is going to make a difference? But anyway, maybe I'm out of touch a little bit there as well. But it just seems a little funny business to me. But that's how it goes, man. Next thing you know, it'll be passed and it'll be over. But I have no idea. That's not a prediction.
Yeah, and again, I'm not against 67-year-olds flying, and obviously, at some places they already can do that, right? NetJets is one of them. Now, at what point is 202 old?
Right.
Too old. I just flew with an FO who's at NetJets, and he told me some stories that were pretty eye-opening about how old some of the captains were over there. and it's all good. It's all fun and games if everyone's able to do what they need to do. But which leads us to our next topic, which is pilot incapacitation, right? Recent events, WestJet, Envoy, and the most recent, obviously, Southwest, has been kind of the dream of every private pilot, right? You're on a commercial plane, big airliner, and the call comes, hey, is anyone on here a pilot, right? And you get to step up. Well, in Southwest case, there was another commercial pilot, so a very highly trained person, but they got the call and they went up and helped land the plane, or at least reduce the workload of the first officer who in my understanding still landed the plane. But this has happened a few times. So if you're talking single pilot, you're talking raising age requirements, you're talking some of those things. I think it's at least something to be considered, that a pilot incapacitation is a real deal. I think Skybrary, which is one of the websites out there, conducted a pilot survey, or at least they reported a pilot survey that indicated that almost 1/3 of all pilots who'd responded to the survey had experienced incapacitation, requiring another crew member to take over their duties, or at least some part of their duties, with safety being threatened in 3% of the cases. So, again, my humble opinion, single pilot, terrible idea right now. Eventually, I'm not living under a rock.
Yeah, AI
is going to take over all our jobs, right?
That's right.
But we're not there yet. And, raising the age requirement, if it's just a Band-Aid for airlines, I'm not for it. If it's a real legislation, we really think it, not at a time when there's a pilot shortage, that would be okay. Kind of like investing, right, Charlie? We don't just react.
That's right.
Unfortunately, that legislation, that's when they usually react.
So the Southwest one, and I'm kind of not in the loop on these as much as you might be. So incapacitation, for those that don't know, basically one of the pilots passes out or is unable to do anything. The other takes over. What, any more specifics?
Or dies. Yeah. Not in the Southwest case, but in some of the other cases, they've passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we go, obviously captains go through screening every 6 months.
Yeah. Rob, I always mess that incapacitation one up in the sim. You're coming down on the Cat 3.
Oh, on the Cat 3. Yeah.
Coming down on the Cat 3. You're right at minimums. The captain passes out, and I'm just over there twiddling my thumbs like, this is pretty cool. I'm like, dang it, I'm supposed to be paying attention.
Yeah, that's right.
Got me every time.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, when you're on a really precise approach, I'll try to keep it in layman's terms. You only can query the flying pilot once or twice, depending on where you're at, before you have to take over. And if they don't respond, you just take over and conduct a go around. So
I always did just a little bit of a touch and go.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's fine. Yeah. Just don't take out the thrust reversers. You're fine. Awesome, man. Okay. Moving along, this podcast is brought to you by Leading Edge Financial Planning. Okay, folks, let's bring it down a notch and get real for a second. What are your values in life? Is your money aligned with those values? How is your money optimized to achieve your dreams and goals that were derived from those values? If you would like some help with putting all of this together and putting your army of dollar bills to work for you, give me a call, 719-624-7055, or give Charlie a call at 865-240-2292.
Would you guys help me plan for my daughter's college tuition?
Yeah, of course.
Do you all have to do what's in my best interest?
Yeah, of course.
What about tax planning?
Yeah, of course.
Can you guys help me about disability planning?
Yeah, of course. Listen, here at Leading Edge Financial Planning, we are comprehensive planners who pride ourselves in having plans in place when life happens. Look us up, leadingedgeplanning.com.
All right. How do I do?
You did great. You did great, Charlie. Nice job.
Thank you. He put a script in front of me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. I just realized.
Did you get into character though?
I know. I'm sorry. I just realized that I was supposed to read the words next to my name. I was like, wait a second. Oh, yes. That's
okay. Well, nice. It was good. Solid. Best commercial yet.
Yeah.
Vote for your favorite. Mm-hmm. Now back to the show. All right. Proxy voting. Don't fall asleep on us. But proxy voting. Now, if you don't know what proxy voting is, you're not alone. So let's start this journey a little bit by taking a quick sojourn over to one of the major differences between private and publicly held companies. And we're not going to get too long-winded on this, Charlie, right? But private companies are owned privately, obviously, as the name describes there, and the owners typically maintain control of the company. The managerial and business decisions, both strategic and tactical, and can pretty much run the company as they see fit. Public companies, theoretically, give up control to the shareholders and lose some of this control in the process of going public. And it's important to keep in mind that even minority shareholders have a say in how the company is managed and can bring issues to the forefront, perhaps to be voted on at the shareholder meeting. Thus, the proxy vote, proxy meaning the authority to represent someone else, especially in voting. And all that means is companies, public companies, put out certain issues that have to be voted on by shareholders. And that's all it's talking about there, not to get too in the weeds with that. And the shareholder can maybe not attend. So maybe they're not in attendance. So that's why they call it a proxy, which most people, most shareholders are not going to attend a shareholder meeting. Mm-hmm. It's great if you get a chance to go to one, at least get some free coffee and juice box for you, Charlie, probably. Now, if you own a stock outright, you're a shareholder and you can vote on the issues supplied via the mail or online, called a proxy statement, which is going to describe these issues. And it may suggest which way the managers or the board of directors suggest that you vote. You don't obviously have to vote that way. And some people do, some people don't. Typically, shareholders may vote on a variety of issues, including the election of board members, merger or acquisition approvals. I think obviously Spirit has brought that to the forefront, or approving a stock compensation plan. So those are some of the issues that you may be voting on. Now, if you own a mutual fund or an ETF index fund, you may be able to vote, but there's a good chance your shares will be voted by the fund companies themselves or their stewardship teams, or by a third-party proxy stewardship company. One of the most famous ones is called Glass Lewis. It's a proxy advisory company, or ISS, that's another one. And then this is the case for many index funds. They use these companies and third parties to conduct the proxy votes on behalf of the shareholders. Yeah, and these guys, and gals do it full time, which is pretty interesting. Charlie, what do you got?
Yeah, it's. I think the context that you're, the reason you're talking about this is interesting, because in our world, flying world, you're an employee, but you can be a stockholder. And so if you own stock, you're a part owner of that company and you get a voice. That's the whole idea behind a public company. And that's where you hear the term activist investors, right? Where they own a large portion. These hedge fund, billionaires own large portions of stock, and they get to have an outsized influence. Maybe not outsized is the right word, but a big influence.
Maybe, but I think you're right. It might be outsized.
Yeah. Big influence on who makes up the board of directors, and even sometimes the direction of the company. They can put a lot of pressure on these. So I guess the idea in this current environment we're in, if you're at an airline, you have a voice. If you own part of that airline as well, in addition to being an employee, maybe a different voice as an employee. So I think that's important, right? To go take advantage of that. And if everybody voted as a shareholder, then probably could have a huge impact.
Yeah. And you'll see that sometimes in different companies. You've heard of proxy battles, probably. And then that's when issues come up, and the institutional investors, the big investors, the hedge funds, the billionaires, right? Or whichever company, mutual funds, pensions, those folks are having a disagreement on how the company should be managed. That's when they come to the retail investors like you and me, Charlie. And they're like, hey, if you get whatever, 10%, 20% of those folks to vote your way, then you might be able to hedge or win that vote. Now, most of what we call the retail investors, like we just talked about, they don't vote, Charlie. That no surprise, right? Lots of us have owned stock and will probably almost never, ever vote, and probably didn't even know how to vote unless there was something that popped up or there was a big campaign by the company or one of these entities to get you to vote. So if you can vote, I think it's great. And the more you get out there and do it, and the more people do it, the more you have a chance to persuade the company to do what you want. So, but that's more than you want to know ever about proxy voting.
Right on.
On to the next. Charlie, what do you got?
Yeah, we've got a whole, I'm going to use the word smorgasbord of topics today.
Love that word.
It's kind of, you and I were like, hey, what should we talk about? And it's like, man, there's so many little things that come up, and sometimes maybe we get a little greedy and want to address all of them, but just a couple of things that I'll go over that I thought were interesting. I've only heard this from one of our folks, and that is a retired, he's a retired Air Force guy, and he got an email, showed me the email from DFAS that gave him the option to opt out of his survivor spousal spousal survivor benefits plan. I think that's SBP. And I haven't seen that from anyone else, Rob, and that really presented an interesting opportunity just to rethink it. And it's a very different thought process if you're 55 versus maybe if you're just getting out of the military. And I think there's a lot more to it. So that's all I'll say. I have not seen that from anyone else. So just give us a call, and we'll help you go through that if you get that message. And maybe that was a one-off special circumstance. I don't know, Rob, but that was interesting. So that was just one of the things.
That's super interesting. I myself have not received that letter, but my understanding is back in the day, you got the one chance to decide. And then once you did, I think you had up to a year to correct it if you wanted to, but after that it was a done deal. You couldn't do anything. So if they're giving you the option now, that sounds like a good thing if it works out for you, but it doesn't, just because they give you the option doesn't mean take it.
Yeah, that's right. And I got a feeling, we went through some pros and cons, and there's some good articles out there, but I got a feeling this individual probably will keep it, but it was interesting to go through that thought process. So if that's you all out there, just give us a shout or email or text or something. The other thing, I'll stay on the DFAS for a second, and this is as we blend into some what we've kind of gone over after tax season is over now. The dust has settled a little bit, and we're looking back on things that we learned. One of the things that repeatedly gets our retired military folks, and this is especially true for those that have a reserve retirement, all of a sudden it starts at most of the time 60, I think, maybe a year or two earlier, depending. But what gets a lot of people is, let's say you're an airline pilot, you start your reserve pay, I don't know, let's say $4,000 a month. Well, the DFAS people, they don't know your other income, so I think they default to like an 8% withholding. Well, guess what your real taxes is on that, your Air Force retirement, a military retirement, whatever it might be. Your real tax rate is probably 24, maybe 32%. So people get shocked, and it's a painful, angry shock. So think about that one. If you're coming up on the time to get your military retirement pension started, change those withholdings. We can help with that too. We've sent out pictures and diagrams and directions. So that's a big one.
And DFAS, for those who don't know, the military is just the Defense Finance and Accounting Service, I believe. And they are just like almost the custodian or bank of the defense world. So
right on.
Not bank.
Right.
That's probably not the best description.
Yeah. The pay people.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah. Last thing I'll say on the taxes, and I think this is an often misunderstood, is let's say you're an airline family and you've got your spouse is working, let's say a substitute teacher. You're a substitute teacher as an airline spouse, and your airline husband or wife says, "Hey, why are you even doing that? All your money is going to go to taxes anyway, right? Don't even bother with that. You're making a couple thousand a month." Not true, right, Rob? Not true at all.
Right.
So what happens is now the shock comes in where, again, if I'm a substitute teacher, they're probably withholding 12%. And then the shock comes at the end of the year when you owe a big tax bill and it appears to be almost as much as you made. The real question, there's a lot of moving parts there. Won't get into that. But basically, that works like this. If I'm a substitute teacher and my spouse is an airline pilot, probably in the 24% marginal tax bracket, that means every dollar I make, I get to take home 76 cents. Now, if we as a family go up into the 32% marginal tax bracket, or if my income as a substitute teacher makes us go in the 32% tax bracket, all that means is instead of on every dollar, now I get 68 cents. And my thought, Rob, is that 68 cents is more than 0 cents. I don't know.
Yes.
Is that true?
True. Yep. Let me check your math. Yes.
So anyway, I think that's something we hear, like, don't even bother. It's all going to taxes. Not true. So I think those are the couple things. I think I'm going to skip the T-bills discussion there a second, because we're going to cover some of that, Rob, in the I-bonds, if you will.
Okay. So all right. You got me all excited with T-bills, and now, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. No, I love that because of the, we won't get, I guess, too much in the weeds there, but the safe harbor stuff. And
we still got to talk about gold. I'm super excited.
Yeah. The gold. That sounds like it's pretty good. You want to do CDs now or gold?
That's the meat of the mission. Yeah. Let's talk about I-bonds, CDs. Those things are really interesting right now. So you go ahead. Start us off with some callable CDs.
All right. Okay. There's nothing sexier than talking about certificates of deposit, Charlie. So to commemorate this occasion, I decided to write a little song, little ditty, but I had to steal from Salt and Pepper. So here goes. Let's talk about CDs, baby. Let's talk about non-callable and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about CDs. Okay, Charlie? Let's do it.
I love it. Nice work, man. Who's Salt and Pepper? I'm just kidding.
Well, kids these days, they don't know.
That's right.
Anyways, that was terrible. But anyways, what is a CD? According to Investopedia, it is a savings product that earns interest on a lump sum for a fixed period of time. CDs differ from savings accounts because the money must remain untouched for the entirety of their term, or risk a penalty, fees, or lost interest, right? Which may not be too bad. Let's get real. It may be the last 3 months. It may be whatever, but double check that when you buy these things, if you need the liquidity. But CDs usually have higher interest rates than savings accounts, foot stomp, as an incentive for that lost liquidity. You're not supposed to take it out right away, right? You're supposed to hold it for the maturity. Now, a couple of quick notes. The bank's aim when they take this money is to go make more money with it, right? Paying you the interest to leave that money with them for that period of time offered by the CD. And typically, top paying certificates of deposit pay higher interest than the best savings and money market accounts in exchange for that liquidity again for that period of time. CDs are a safer and more conservative investment than stocks and bonds, right? There's not as much risk, offering lower opportunity for growth, but with a non-volatile guaranteed rate of return, which is pretty nice, or at least guaranteed by the bank or the entity that gave you the CD or you bought the CD from. So what does all this mean? And the question I got on this was from the flight deck was CDs, callable, non-callable, what does it matter? What do you really need to know? Here it is. The different types of CDs out there, or at least one of them, the nuance is called callable versus non-callable CDs. Pretty self-explanatory. It sounds just like you think it would. The callable can be called back by the bank before that maturity date, right? So maybe you have a 9-month CD. At 7 months, they say, hey, we want our money back. And you have to, we're going to give you your money back and stop the interest payments. So they're going to give you the interest payments up to that 7 months. But after that, they may give you your money back and you have to go invest it elsewhere. That's a risk because the reason the bank's doing that is because interest rates on CDs have typically fallen. So they don't have to pay as much to new CD buyers as they do you. So they want to get rid of you. So they call it and they'll give you your money back. Mm-hmm. So non-callable, obviously, may not have as much of an interest rate, as high of an interest rate as those callable, but the non-callable, when you're investing in CDs, Charlie, are you really trying to make a ton of money off these? Do you want that risk?
Right. Yeah.
That the callable kind of offer, your CDs, yes, you want money, but do you need that unnecessary risk? The argument can be made you don't. So non-callable, a little bit lower interest rate, but they can't call it. They can't call it back, so that they'll hold it. You'll hold it for maturity and get that full principal back and all of the interest when it comes mature. So that's probably enough about CDs. They're guaranteed by the bank or the company offering the CD.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. CDs are, like you said, sexy again, because I'm looking right now at some brokered or tradable CDs at Schwab, and they're 3-month CDs, a little over 5%. 9
That's fantastic.
Months. In fact, it's really odd. The 3-month CD is a little higher than the 1-year CD, which is, again, back to the inverted yield curve. But nonetheless, that is great. There's no reason anymore. Money market funds are coming up. They're starting to pay a little bit more. No reason anymore that you should have just plain old cash sitting around. Again, there's nothing wrong with that in your checking account. You're paying bills, et cetera, but there's opportunities out there. Yeah. So Rob, that's kind of leads us into the I bonds. If you're ready to go that direction, the exciting.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I bonds.
Do you have a song about I bonds, Charlie?
No, I didn't.
We won't.
But they're certainly not sexy anymore. They were sexy. Now they're not.
They're not bad.
They're not bad. But I tell you what. Here's the thing. We've put out some information. Kevin, the Professor Gormley. Go to YouTube. It's in the show notes, or just go to YouTube and type in Kevin Gormley I bonds. It'll pop up. But the point is, by the time this podcast comes out, April will be over. Now, that's important because if you buy them before April is over, if you did buy them, then they were kind of sexy still. 6.89 until May 1st of 2023, at which point they're going to drop significantly. We don't know the exact rate yet, but smart people can calculate this and get really, really close. Our guy, Jason Reagan, CFP, is one of those, and he loves to go into the websites and calculate these things. And he's come up with about 3.38%. And I think somebody else said 3.37, 3.39. Who cares, right? It's a lot lower than it used to be or is through April of 2023. Okay, so let's talk nuts and bolts real quick. Should you buy I bonds as of May 1st, 2023? My opinion is no, because there are other opportunities out there, like the Treasury bills and the CDs you and I just talked about, that are paying 5% for 3, 6, 9-month terms. In fact, the Treasury bill is a little bit down on the 12-month, but you can still get a CD, tradable CD, for 5%.
What about prior to the end of April?
Prior to the end of April is a great question, and the answer is maybe. Depends. It depends. Okay, so go back and check out the professor's video back in time. But anyway, it's still a good deal. If you can get them as of the end of April, then you would have locked in that 6.89% for the next 6 months. And then it will roll over. The subsequent 6 months will roll over to the new 3.38. So then you basically get that blended rate for the 12 months, if that makes sense, which, again, by the time this comes out, it's probably going to be irrelevant.
I'm going to throw in a but here, or at least a different perspective. They are still good for certain purposes, right? Because that what makes them sexy, at least in my mind, is that 0.4% fixed, if that's what comes out. We don't know exactly.
It is, but that's right.
That
good point. I left that off.
0.4% fixed, which is above what, in theory, is the inflation rate. Obviously, everyone's inflation rate is a little bit different, but in theory, right? That's above and beyond.
That's not the inflation component. The fixed one is not the inflation component.
No, it's above the inflation component.
Oh, I'm with you now. I'm tracking. Okay.
So that's why I think they're still somewhat sexy, again, for an emergency fund type allocation. Yeah, and the other thing too here is when you buy them, you just kind of forget about them until you need them. Obviously, that first year they're not liquid, so keep that in mind. They can't be part of your emergency fund deal then. But obviously, you can beat the rate, like your point, if you're willing to go in there and do some work. But these are kind of fire and forget weapons. I don't know.
That's a good point. In fact, Kevin addresses that in his video and is like, hey, there's the economics of this matter. And then there's the human behavior side of it. Like, well, heck, if I just leave them, they're going to do pretty well. And so I think the question, the twofold question is, hey, it's after May 1st, 2023, should I buy them? There are better opportunities out there and on the same website, treasurydirect.gov. So if you're on the same website, just get the higher rate if you're looking to buy something. If you own them already and you're thinking, well, should I sell them or not? I think that's where your argument is actually pretty good. Let's just hold on to them, and you're going to get over the next 6 months, you're going to get a blended rate of somewhere between 4.5% and 5%. Now, the reason I'm vague on that, Rob, is because of the rules. Yeah. It really depends on when you sell it, because if you sell these things prior to the 5-year period, you're going to pay 3 months of interest as penalty, which is not bad. But that's why we can't be, depends on when you sell it is to the interest rate. Now, the last thing I'll say on these is a good idea, if you own them, is to wait until, of course, you got to wait till after your 12-month period is over, and then allow 3 months or at least 1 month of the lower interest to take place. In other words, the 3.39. That way your penalty is smaller. Hopefully I said that correctly. Wait and allow the new rates to take effect so that you're not penalized 6.89% annualized. You're penalized 3.9% annualized.
Yeah, 3.38. Yeah, I'm with you. That makes total sense. Yeah. And we did a podcast on this several podcasts ago. I wish I had the flight off the top of my head, but I don't. That's right. But that was good too. But again, show notes have Kevin, the Professor Gormley's great. I mean, he's just a photogenic kind of guy. Yeah, get in there, take a look, see. No, but now I really want to hear this gold. Let's talk about gold.
I've got the gold bug. I've got the gold. I've got the new truck and gold bug. Both are very dangerous. So gold has gone up this year. What is gold year to date? I'm going to take a look.
Let me check it.
Gold year to date. That's 9.5%, Rob. As of today, April 26th, market's closed. And it's up significantly. The S&P is up 6.5 as of today. By the way, bonds are up 4% year to date. That's not too bad. But anyway, gold is doing really well. So as you might imagine, we're getting a lot more questions. Should we own gold? Okay, so let's jump in and talk about why, first of all, does gold come up over and over again? And how can you own gold? How should we invest? Why do we want to own gold? First of all, I'm going to just clear the air. And Rob, you and I know that gold is a very hot button issue, very emotional issue. It gets political, it gets ideological, and our favorite blogger, Ben Carlson, says in so many words, he's like, it's as if it's our opportunity to stick it to the man, because we went off the gold standard in the 70s. We went on the fiat currency with no backing. People maybe may or may not like that. And so there's this emotional thing going on too, right?
Yes.
Nonetheless, some people think fiat currency, that's hogwash, doesn't make sense. But
speaking of that, Charlie, I got to put a plug in for yours. I think it was yours and Kevin's YouTube. Again, we'll put in the show notes, but your talk about the dollar and the strength of the dollar and the rise and the fall of the dollar is fantastic. So go check that out.
You're talking about the last podcast. Is that right?
Oh, that was in the podcast. I'm sorry, I wasn't here for it. I remember listening to it. I thought it was a video. Was it a video?
Yeah, the podcast 55. We talked about the dollar as the world's reserve currency.
Yes, that's it. Go check that out.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was interesting. Neat diagram. Go on YouTube and check it out. Hopefully I've put it there and made it public. But anyway, so let's talk about gold real quick. How can we own it? There's 3 different things to think about here, or 3 different reasons people may want to do gold. And let me rephrase that. May want to is the wrong phraseology. 3 different ways to do this. You may not want to do it at all. Okay, first is I can own it as an investment as part of my portfolio, retirement portfolio, taxable brokerage account, whatever. You can buy an ETF or a mutual fund. You could buy strictly gold bullion, I think it's called, and you own pieces of that's stored in a vault somewhere in Europe, I believe, if you own GLD. Okay, you could own the gold miners. You own companies that go and they mine for gold, and those two behave and track very closely in performance. Okay, that can be part of your portfolio. There are some, in fact, even in our own firm, Jason is one of them. He'll argue that there's some diversification benefits to gold. He might be right. I don't know. It just depends, and there's some pros and cons to that. So that's one way to do that. The second is I could own physical gold coins in my home. I can buy gold coins, stick them in hopefully my safe at home or something, or a safety deposit box at the bank or whatever. And I own gold coins, right? A lot of people do this. Rob, do you have gold coins in your house? I'm coming to your house. Tell me where they're
at. Zero gold coins in my house.
I'm coming to your house.
All you robbers out there. No.
Thieves. But so that's the second one. The third is I can actually buy physical gold in a self-directed IRA. Okay, we've seen these. And you cannot buy physical gold in your regular IRA or 401k. You have to go out to a specific trust company and they open up a specific account, a little higher fees. I think we may have talked about these before, but it's through a trust company, and they have to hold the gold in a certain place in a certain way. In fact, here's something from Investopedia. If you opt for actual metal, this is within a self-directed IRA, certain criteria apply for it to be held in an IRA. The precious metal coins or bars must meet IRS fineness standards, FINENESS, fineness standards, and must be held by the IRA trustee instead of the IRA owner.
I think my wife holds me to that same
standard,
same criteria. Charlie,
that's right. You qualify. The gold must be stored in an IRS approved depository. Okay, let me just address this option first, and then we'll go back to the other two. I don't know why anybody would want to do this, Rob. Why, if you want physical gold, it seems like to me you want access to it. There's some other reasons. Maybe it's a currency to you in times of distress. This one doesn't fit to me any of the reasons we might own it, but I've seen it happen, and we've seen that. So I'm not going to talk too much about that unless you can add anything to that. I just don't know.
I can't add anything really. My whole thought on gold is it does nothing. It doesn't innovate. It has no ingenuity. Right. It's a metal that people dig up and bury in the ground and put arm guards around it in the hopes that somebody's going to pay more for it in the future. If you're trying to use it, don't you have a story? Am I getting ahead of myself here about one of the kids that tried to live off of his gold coins? This is fascinating.
So this goes back to let's go to number. I've lost track now. This is when we buy gold coins and put them in our home, and I've looked a lot and read a little bit as well about how, in what type of scenario would it present itself where gold became a currency again. And we're talking about a complete and total economic collapse of every banking system, no governments, and maybe we go back and we trade gold or something. Okay. So I watched a video today, and the kid must have been 18. I'm not linking this in the show notes because I'm embarrassed that I even watched it. But nonetheless, he's got 12.5 million followers and he's 18. And he must be making millions every year, which is crazy.
That's about 12 million more than we have.
That is, isn't it? So he goes, he's got these little gold coins, and they are tiny, Rob. They're smaller than a dime, but they're worth, that's the smallest, I guess, physical size you can get. I mean, they're pretty small. They're about $80 a piece. That's going to depend on the value of gold. Sure. But during the time he made this, about $80 a piece. So he wanted to survive an entire day with just his gold coins. So he goes to the coffee shop, he goes to a couple places, and some people take his gold coins, but unfortunately he had to pay $80 for a cup of coffee. They're like, sure, we'll take your $80 gold coin. And
really? They took it?
Yeah, they took it. I'm not sure what they did with it, but a couple of them took it. I think he bought a taco or two and paid $80 for the taco. But
I wonder what they did, because you'd have to get the owner or the manager involved. They probably pocketed it and then paid for the coffee themselves or something, right?
Absolutely. So it's kind of funny, but it's also a little bit true. An article that I did come across in preparation was like, hey, what does this look like if the world does start to collapse as we know it? First of all, a lot of people would argue that this is going to happen gradually. You're not all of a sudden going to be instantaneously in a situation where everybody's trading gold coins. More likely, services are going to be valuable. Bread, fuel, guns, chickens, are going to be valuable. But how do you physically carry around this gold, and how do you buy a loaf of bread with gold? And so there's some obstacles there. Nonetheless, we can't possibly account for every type of scenario. So that's why some people own gold, physical gold, and or silver in their homes. And so, again,
it's interesting. Yeah,
it is interesting. I can't fault anyone for doing that, because you can't possibly predict every scenario, and who knows when the SHIT hits the fan, I'm coming to your place, Rob, because you got the gold.
I've got cows. I think cows are gold.
I've got baby chickens.
That's why I got that hat back up there. Oh, nice. Family ranch since 1888. That's right. Yeah, we're pretty much like Yellowstone.
So we've got a good link in the show notes to check that out. Full disclosure, it's from a gold coin shop in Atlanta, but I thought it was a good article, a good read anyway. Of course, they're gonna have some good reasons why you should own it. Now, I know that I'm probably making a lot of people angry. This is a very emotional issue.
Stop.
So I just tried to read up on it and figure out, what does it really look like in history, or what might it look like if gold becomes a currency, And so it's really kind of hard to find, to be honest with you. I think one of the best things out there, if you're very interested in this topic, gold as a currency, or you think we should be on the gold standard, go read The Ascent of Money, A Financial History of the World by Niall Ferguson. I think he's a Harvard kind of guy. Fascinating story about, a lot of the history behind gold and when it was used as a currency. And you can manipulate the value of gold, by the way. People say you can't manipulate it, it's fixed. Well, that's not true, because the Spanish took their gold coins and half of it was gold and the other half was nickel, thereby doubling the supply, or the money supply, immediately. So it's happened before.
And there's, maybe a little bit, not a ton, but there's still gold miners out there, I believe. Yeah. So they're still adding to the gold.
Yeah.
Population,
if you they're continuing to mine, but
very little.
Yeah. One of the things I just heard from someone respectable as far as economics, they just said, look, our economy is just way too big to still be on the gold standard. And that kind of makes sense. We just don't have enough physical gold to support the entire economy. But nonetheless, that's up for debate and smarter people. I'll finish off this discussion, Rob, with, as far as, is gold a diversifier? Again, back to our buddy Ben Carlson. I'll call him buddy. I don't know him. He doesn't know I exist. But anyway, he says it best. He takes the complex and make it simple. He says, my stance on gold has always been that I have no idea what's going to happen with it in the future. No one else does either. So back to your point, it doesn't produce a product. It doesn't produce a dividend. It's basically an emotional type investment. When people get a little bit fearful, they might find value in it at that time. The last thing I'll say is, gold did awesome from, let's see, when was it? 2011 timeframe. Man, if you own gold post the Great Recession up through 2011, it was phenomenal, right? I mean, it was killing the S&P 500.
I think so was Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But here's the catch, and this happens with every type of investment, Rob, whether it be Bitcoin or Kathy Wood's ARK. We've done the research over and over and over again. If you look at the actual investment, in this case, GLD, and you look at when it went up and you look at the inflow of money, then you look at when it went down and you look at the outflow of money, you can quickly tell that most people did not capture the return of gold during that time, because as humans, our investment behavior requires us almost, unfortunately, to buy high and sell low. So it went up in 2011, but let me read this. It's a little bit better. It's unlikely many individuals actually participated in this rise unless they held physical gold. The gold ETF, GLD, only had around $3 billion in assets in 2005. It then grew to nearly $80 billion by the peak in 2011 and 12 before falling back down to less than $25 billion more recently. Unfortunately, that means many of the bandwagon investors got sucked in very late to the bull market and lost a lot of money in the ensuing crash. That's Ben Carlson. And that's not a knock on gold. That happens in every asset class that shoots to the moon. Bitcoin, tech, whatever it might be. Our human behavior sometimes sabotages our own investments.
I love it. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm not going to go out and buy a gold tooth now, though, Charlie. So
it still looks good. Looks good.
I love it. That's fascinating. And the whole. We'll keep talking about gold, and obviously have Jason on maybe at some point and give us his take on it. Which he's coming from a different angle, but I like what you said there, Charlie. And Ben Carlson's obviously got a knack for distilling these things, these complicated thoughts down.
Yeah,
so
it would be fair to have Jason on because I admit my bias against, but there are really good reasons. And Jason could come on and go, hey, look, here's why you might want to have some gold or gold miners in your portfolio. I mean, he could make a really good argument, which is great.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
Don't like it. All right. Well, anything else to add before we wrap it up here?
That's it. I talked way too much, but it was fun.
T-bills? You want T-bills at all? Or?
I can't do it.
Okay. All right. We'll save that for next time. That's right. A nice little teaser. I know everyone's going to definitely tune in for our next one.
Hey, health and wealth. Health and wealth.
We're doing this. I mean, health and wealth.
At some point, we're doing health and wealth because I love it. You love it. You know, why go into retirement with a bunch of money if you're not healthy?
Yes.
And so we're passionate about that. We want to talk about that soon.
I like it. Leave us a note on this one. Leave us a review. Okay. A couple of quotes for you to ponder on your drive or flight or morning ritual, whatever you're doing there. This first one comes from George Lorimer, an American journalist, editor, author, and publisher who worked as the editor of the Saturday Evening Post from 1899 to 1936. He says this: it's good to have money and the things that money can buy, but it's good too to check up once in a while and make sure that you haven't lost the things that money can't buy. It's great. This second one's from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the famous German poet, playwright, and statesman. I think I said that correctly, but if not, don't kill me. He says this: many people take no care of their money till they come to nearly the end of it, and others do just the same with their time. That's it. Let us be the first to welcome you to our final destination, to Flight 56, questions from the flight deck. Hopefully we've not wasted your time. Did you like the podcast? If you did, we greatly appreciate reviews and subscribers. We are not pushing folks to become clients. We just want to provide more information to help the world become better stewards of their money. Please shoot us any questions you would like us to cover on our next questions from the flight deck episode or flight. And remember, as Emerson said, the world makes way for those who know where they are going. And as I say, so plan accordingly. From all of us here at the Pilot Money Guys, we wish you smooth rides and soft in the zone landing.
Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from these projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.